All right, welcome to our gaming podcast, which currently doesn't have a title because we just don't know what to call it yet. I'm Stir Fry,
I'm Tanked.
and we're just kind of doing this as a hobby. We've been gaming for about 20 years, give or take a couple years, and it's just something we really enjoy. So we wanted to, communicate about games, talk about what got us into the gaming community, as well as do a breakdown today. We wanted to break down a game that we've both played, and it turns out we've both played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So the game plan today is to do a brief intro for both of us for how we got into the gaming community, and then go into play-by-play of what we liked, what we didn't like, and an overall score for Zelda Breath of the Wild today.
Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of start off. My name's Tanked Entree, kind of going by our gamer tags that we commonly call each other since we play so much. And I really started off kind of in that Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era. Started with the Sega Genesis and got the Sega CD. I don't really remember how we got it. My brother just kind of came home with it one day. So if you don't ever play the Sega CD, is basically just had a CD drive and the Sega Genesis sat on top of it, and there's some alright games for it. I honestly don't think I really played it all too much.
You're more of a Nintendo guy, I think.
Yeah, I played the Sega a lot, the Genesis a lot. Super Tecmo Bowl, Sonic.
Yeah.
There's some FIFA game I played a lot. And I mean, I had a lot of good memories with the Sega. Had a cousin. They had the Super Nintendo, so we did the classic swap. You get the Sega for a month, we get your Super Nintendo for a month, and played all the great games for the Super Nintendo. And also, I just kind of grew up in the time when arcades were still huge. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Street Fighter, Spider-Man.
The shooting games, I can't remember what they were called, like...
Time Crisis.
Time Crisis, that was it.
Yes, with the pedal.
Yes, and you would hide behind cover, and then you'd pop up and hide behind cover.
I always loved going to Kmart with my family because they always had arcades, so me and my brother would go in there while they'd shop. And I just had a lot of good memories. The mall always had a sweet arcade. And
your Kmart was special because mine only had like claw machines and shit.
I mean, even to this day, it finally closed down a few months ago, but they still try to have an arcade in there. And, the arcade bounced around that store multiple locations, but I had a lot of good memories there, just kind of growing up and hanging out with my brother and playing arcade games.
Yeah.
And then the Sega with him and the Super Nintendo, and then I think it was the first Christmas N64 is out. Didn't even expect it. Unwrapped a gift from under the Christmas tree, and boom, N64. And That's where most of my gaming memories, I'd say, come from, probably, is the N64. Pilot Wings and Diddy Kong were the first two. Diddy Kong Racing were the first two games I played.
And Diddy Kong Racing, that had flying and boats and carts, right? It had it all. So
yes, hovercrafts, the cars, and the planes.
Which is really different for its time, because I know there was like Mario Kart that was out, and like traditional racing games, or you had like playing games, you had like Ace Combat, I think, was on PlayStation.
Yep, Ace Combat was on PlayStation.
You had like those flight simulator games, and those go back. Pilot Wings goes all the way back to, I believe, the Super Nintendo. Don't quote me on that. There may be one earlier than that, but there was never really a game that like incorporated all of those into it. So
no,
it must have been pretty special for you, for sure.
It is a good Christmas.
Yeah.
And then of course I got into the classics: GoldenEye, Super Mario 64, Donkey Kong when it came out, Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, the Zeldas, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, and I think what really sticks with me though is just the 4 controllers in it at once, and playing different. Mario Party, having sleepovers and getting the Surge and the Mountain Dew, and I mean you see those classic pictures of 4 controllers strung out and plugged into the system and Mountain Dew all over. I mean that is my childhood.
Yeah, you're taking me back to like late 90s, early 2000s, definitely.
And I mean those were just great times. I loved N64. Unfortunately, the GoldenEye graphics just don't working today.
I don't even think it's
We've been
graphics
spoiled.
necessarily. I think the control scheme is what hurts that game the most.
It does.
Unless you play it on an emulator, but
I mean, just the way you aim now too is you actually had to move the cursor to aim. It's not where
Well, now having those dual analog sticks that like really changed the game.
it did.
I actually remember when the dual analog sticks came out, and I remember it was on PlayStation.
PlayStation.
Was the first one to do it, and I remember the game they did it for. I believe it was Super Monkey Ball.
Really?
Yeah, I think that was like the first game for PlayStation that incorporated the dual analog sticks because of the puzzle-based stuff. Like, I think one would move the ball, the other would move the level. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but I do remember that.
Yeah.
To kind of catch up to where you're at, my first console was a Sega Genesis. I got it in 1994. My mom's boyfriend at the time happened to get it for me, and it came with Sonic, and oh man, I was hooked. I was hooked from there, man.
Sonic. I have a lot of good memories with Sonic.
Yeah. So I would play that. I would play Vector Man. I had this thing called Sega Channel, which was like it was an online gaming subscription. Like,
yeah, see, I never had that.
yeah, it was like a beefy, what do you call it? Cartridge. And on top of the cartridge, there was like a box. And you would put it into your gaming system, you'd put it in the Sega, and boot it up, and you'd be able to play, like, I think somewhere between 30 and 50 games each month. And I can't remember how much it was, but it's pretty revolutionary first time. I always really liked playing the carnival games where you would like manage the carnival and stuff, kind of like Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Oh, yep. Oh, PC too, man. Roller Coaster Tycoon is great.
See, I never got into PC gaming. You know, I mean, I've dabbled in it and here and there, but I never had a PC like that was made for gaming.
Yeah, neither have I. Just
But
classic desktop that I had Roller Coaster Tycoon for.
Then you bring up like one of the best consoles, I think, was the N64. It
Oh,
changed the game whenever they introduced that control stick.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of games really utilized that. I really enjoyed it.
Not a lot of use for that D-pad on that controller.
Yeah, I did notice that. I'd say the games that stood out the most for me on the 64 were probably Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, and Smash Bros.
Smash Bros.
Yes.
Can't forget Smash Bros.
Oh, man. Link was my dude, Captain Falcon, and those were like my two mains.
Link was probably my main.
Yeah.
Just because I was a huge Zelda fan, and man, Smash Bros. Was a great game, and Mario Party also sticks out to me. I just love those Mario Party games and the little mini games they had, and just the putting your palm on this control stick and trying to spin as fast as you can. You get that little burn mark.
They made gloves for that. They actually
Really?
like sold like gaming gloves for that purpose.
I had no idea.
I think Nintendo got so many complaints from parents like, what the shit are you doing? Like, our kids are literally getting blisters on their hands from your game, and there was a glove that they had for it.
Yeah, that was one game that definitely...
It was super competitive,
It
man.
was.
Like, it was way more... Like,
great.
the later iterations of the game don't have as intense mini-games. And I think that was the reason. Like, because kids were serious about, like, spinning that Shy Guy and getting them to fly as high as they could.
Yep.
I don't know, did we talk about PlayStation yet? I don't think we did.
No, we didn't.
I think PlayStation was the first console that really changed the way I look at games. It went from, kind of a fun pastime to like, wow, this is an art form. Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't just, jumping platform to platform, collecting items. Like, there's a story to this. It's really in depth, and you care about the characters. And I think the first game that did it for me was Metal Gear Solid, because it was just so cinematic, and like the dialogue, it was really mature. It was actually rated M for mature back then. And then another game that did it for me was Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if you ever played either of those, but they're really story driven.
Played Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, dude, it's so good. Like, it's definitely my favorite Final Fantasy game. Of course, I haven't played all of them, so I'm biased. I hear a lot of people really love 8 and 9. I did play 10. I really enjoyed it. That was on PlayStation 2, I think.
I believe so.
and the PlayStation 2 changed the game because it became a multimedia platform instead of just a gaming console because it had the DVD player built into it. And at the time, it was actually cheaper to buy a PlayStation 2 than it was to buy a DVD player. Like, because they were hella expensive when they first came out. So it was like, it's like Blu-rays nowadays.
Yep.
Blu-rays are stupid expensive. But yeah, so PS2 had a lot of great games that I really enjoyed. But then something happened, and I ended up switching from Sony to Microsoft because Xbox came out, and at first I was like, nah, whatever, I'll stick with PlayStation. But then Halo came out and changed the way I looked at multiplayer games. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I can play with 16 players together. We can hook up a LAN party, get all our TVs together. So that was really cool. And it changed gaming from like kind of like an isolated thing to like really a community thing for me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you could play couch co-op and play together, but like now you're getting like 16, 20 people all together taking turns playing is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had any experiences like that.
So from the N64, I ended up getting Christmas. I can't remember when it came out, but a few Christmases later, I ended up getting a PlayStation 1 because I started getting those friends that are either Nintendo or Sony. So, I wanted to play with both, whenever I go to whoever's house. And so I ended up getting the PlayStation 1, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater is my grind. Me and my buddy would play that forever, and Need for Speed and Red Faction. I believe that was PlayStation 2, but so I had to have both systems for a while there because I had friends that only had N64 and friends that only had the PlayStation, and I just enjoyed gaming so much and I wanted to be able to game with both of them, so I got that. And then another Christmas came around, and my parents surprised me with an Xbox. They kept saying all Christmas they're giving me a Letterman's jacket, and I really didn't want one. I was kind of pissed about it because I was like, sure, I'll wear it, but like honestly, I don't. After high school, I mean, I'm not gonna be that kid that wears it at college.
So you
like
the one that peaked in high school.
Yeah, like I
just wear your Letterman jacket when you go out to the bar.
No thanks. So they got one of my dad's flannels, put a whole bunch of rocks in a box, and had me open that, and thought it was hilarious when I opened it because they thought,
I'm sure
they tricked me because I thought for sure. And then they came out with this huge box, and it was just this giant Xbox bundle.
Yeah, from EB Games, right?
EB Games, yeah.
Back when it was EB and not GameStop.
That's how I got an Xbox. And actually, I wanted one because all my friends had one, and Halo. Halo is what you said. It changed kind of the way I looked at multiplayer, and those LAN parties were awesome. I mean, I have great memories of being in my friend's basement, putting up the blanket, hanging it up in the to divide the room, and then you had all the TVs set up so you could do giant 8-on-8 or whatever, 4-on-4, and it's awesome that you could do that, and it's really the first time you could do something like that. Besides, it's kind of like you said, the couch co-op or the couch 4v4, where everybody could actually screen look and stuff, and this is really peeking. The first time you could.
Oh, didn't you hate that kid that was like screen peeking? Like, Jimmy, knock it off, you asshole! Like, really?
They'd always deny it, but you'd see them staring at you. And
not only that, but they turn around whenever you were like crawling and invisible, and they just blast you with a shotgun.
They
like,
know
this
where
is ridiculous.
They know where you were at all times, and I mean, it's just really evident.
They could tell where you were spawning. They just snipe you right off the bat. Yep. That's where spawn camping really started.
Yep. But I thought that's just awesome, and from there I got a 360, and then ended up getting a PlayStation 3 at some point in there. Just kind of, my brother had one, so I stayed in touch with him. Didn't really play it all too much though. It was really just kind of play with him. I played kind of like typical games, GTA 5 and some of those big games, and then got my Xbox One, and now I got a Nintendo Switch, and I've been loving my Nintendo Switch. And
it's a great console.
Playing Breath of the Wild, Stardew Valley, which is a great little indie game.
Yeah, I remember when the Switch was announced, I wasn't sure how I felt about it because, when they announced the Wii U, it was really lackluster. Like, they had the gamepad. It's like, okay, that's kind of unique. Like, Nintendo's been, known for innovating their games in their consoles. but I thought it was going to be gimmicky. I thought it was going to be stupid.
Yeah.
But then I got my hands on one, and I'm like, wow, this is way better than I thought it was going to be. Like, the seamless transition from portable to home console.
Yep.
I love it. How quickly it can dock and undock, and the battery life is surprisingly good on
It's
it.
actually, yeah.
Yeah, like it lasts like a good 5-6 hours straight.
Yeah.
Like if you just keep playing, like off the dock.
I mean, I grew up on handhelds. The Game Boy Pocket, I think, was my first one, and then the Game Boy Color, and then I got a Game Boy Advance SP, and then it just kind of. I mean, I love those systems. It had great experiences. Pokemon, of course. You know,
Oh yeah, you can't talk about it. You can't talk about the Game Boy without talking about Pokemon.
I mean, I love those games, but I kind of grew out of this portable phase. I mean, the PSP wasn't really huge, and I just kind of grew out of it. And then when I saw their next console was it's a portable. I kind of had mixed feelings about it. I didn't really like the way it looked at first, and then once I kind of got my hands on one, I was like, all right, this isn't too bad actually. It kind of feels good.
Yeah.
You know, I thought the buttons were gonna be way too small. And
that's what
the
I thought too.
It is surprisingly it's not that bad.
It's pretty comfortable. Yeah, I mean, coming from a guy who plays pretty exclusively on Xbox nowadays, where the controller like. The Xbox controller, the very first one was like a weapon, dude. Like you could kill somebody with that thing.
If you didn't have basketball player hands,
oh, I know, it was awful.
You couldn't hold that thing.
They had a ton of buttons on it too,
yeah,
like the black and white buttons,
and
then all the other ones.
That's how you switch your grenades in Halo.
But yeah, then like switching to the Switch, you know, switching to the Switch. But you know, I thought the thumbsticks were gonna be too small. I thought the buttons were gonna be too small, but it's actually pretty nice. So I gotta give it to that. As far as the Switch goes, really enjoy it though. For like now that I have it, a lot of great games out for it now. I mean, obviously we're gonna talk about Breath of the Wild, but some other honorable mentions, like you said, Stardew Valley, which I haven't touched yet, but I do plan on getting into. Mario Odyssey, also a great game. They just announced Smash Bros.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Pokemon RPG that they're talking about. I can't wait to get more information on that. And just the amount of support that they're getting from indie games now is awesome, because I'm pretty sure they have Minecraft on there too.
They do.
Rocket League, there's a ton of third-party support.
Bunch of third-party support, and even just a lot of games are being remastered for it and stuff.
Yes, and I cannot wait for that.
Yes, I mean it's awesome, and I really like where Switch has gone. It's the number one selling console for its first year sales, I should say.
Yeah, and that's huge.
Considering up the Wii, and that has the number one selling console before, and then
considering where they're coming from, because the Wii U just really tanked, and I was really disappointed by that, because part of the reason I got a Wii U was because Breath of the Wild was coming out on it. It did get delayed, and eventually it did come out on both consoles, and I have played it for both. So, but it did have some good games on it. It had Smash 4, which was good. I believe it had a couple good Mario games on there. Mario Maker, can't forget about Mario Maker. I think they're going to be remaking it for the Switch, though.
Yep, I think they are making it for the Switch actually, and that's the thing. The only complaint I have is just Nintendo has been really tight-lipped on pretty much a lot of stuff coming out. I mean, none of us expected Smash Bros. And don't get me wrong, we're all excited, but we're also waiting for other games like Metroid Prime 4, this Pokemon game that's supposedly, you know, in the making, and we're really expecting and hoping for some of those big games. And you know, it's hard not to have that thought in the back of your mind, like oh no, are they gonna never release these games that we've been hoping for a long time? And you really don't want that to happen, because I've loved the Switch, and you know I've been rooting for Nintendo, but I was really nervous there for Nintendo for a while. Just because of how bad the Wii U did.
Oh, I know.
It was just kind of, you didn't really hear anything from them for a while, and
I thought that was like kind of a nail in the coffin for Nintendo for a minute there. I'm like, man, are they gonna like make another console? Because it was really bad at that point.
Rough, and I'm hoping that they come out. I think the Switch will do really well if they actually come through with this virtual console.
Yes.
Once the online goes live in the fall, hopefully the virtual console comes right along with it, and just from rumors, from what I've heard, that it's pretty much going to range from Nintendo Entertainment System all the way to GameCube, and I think a lot of those, even some of the handhelds, they included games for those. And if that rumor's true, oh man, I mean, they're gonna make a killing. Some of those GameCube games, Wind Waker, if you could buy that for it,
Mario Sunshine,
and even this N64, I think some of those games would do really well as a portable.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. I mean, take your favorite games from 10, 20 years ago, and be able to take them anywhere you go. Definitely be a success.
So, looking forward to seeing what the future holds for the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I'd like to add for the Switch is I'd like to see a better way to communicate with friends. Because I guess the way that you do it now, you have to use some app on your phone or something. Yeah, it's really convoluted.
It's like
real
a
complicated.
Nintendo voice chat app, I think it's called. And
can you just I don't know, a Bluetooth headset? Because I mean, the other consoles have been doing that forever. Now. How can we not make that happen?
It's kind of one question I had is why they kind of released the system with the unfinished online. And you figure that's one of the priorities.
Yeah.
It's because it's what every other system offers already, and that's
I think
people use.
I think Nintendo's different in that aspect though, because they're not about the competitiveness. Yeah. They're not about the online. They want to make fun party games for people.
They're more about family games.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with that.
Yep, and I think they're good there.
So that's a little bit of our background. We kind of delved into how we feel about the Switch because that's our most recent console for both of us. Yeah. But we've both had our share of consoles. I think you've had a little bit more experience with handhelds than I have. Well, I did play a little bit. I did have the Sega Game Gear, which was a lot of fun. Sega Game Gear,
yes.
The first one to have a backlit screen, which is a battery sucker. But anyway, with that said, I think we could dive into our breakdown of Breath of the Wild when we come back.
All right, sounds good. All right, and we're back. So we're gonna go right into our Zelda Breath of the Wild kind of our opinion of it, and break it down into some areas we identified that we want to just kind of talk about, touch base on. I think we kind of have different opinions, so I think kind of give you a good overview of this game and kind of seeing two different perspectives of it. So what are your opinions of it?
Overall, in general, I really enjoyed the game. I originally played it on the Wii U version, which, when I compared the two between the Wii U and the Switch version, there wasn't too much difference. I mean, there was obviously, a little bit of difference with the graphics, a little bit of difference with the frame rate drops, but overall, I mean, it played just fine.
Yeah.
Gameplay was smooth for the most part. I mean, there were bits and pieces where if you had, a bunch of enemies, the frame rate would drop, but not to the point where I would say it's game-breaking by any means. I'd say my favorite part of the game is probably the beginning of it. When you open up and you get to see this whole world you're getting ready to explore, you can literally go anywhere. You can do anything. Yep. And you can't say that about a whole lot of games. You can say that they have an open world and you can choose your missions and you can do this and that, but literally, if you can think it in Breath of the Wild, you can probably make it happen. I've seen crazy videos where, they use the stasis, which is it freezes, time, for an item, and they'll create momentum on it, and they'll use that momentum for that item and fly across the map with it. It's incredible. The physics in the game, I really enjoyed that part. The puzzles, I love the puzzles. But I've always loved the puzzles in Zelda games.
That's what they're known for.
Yeah, it's kind of like the bread and butter of the game. But I don't know, just the vastness of the world. I really like that. So that's kind of my opening opinion on it. What about you?
Yeah, coming from someone that hasn't played a Zelda game since Majora's Mask, obviously this is amazing to me. But kind of like what you're saying was, really, you're only bound to a certain area in the very beginning of the game, and you're on that kind of main peninsula, whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of just really orientation, introduction to the game, and lets you get used to the fighting and the way you have to go through shrines to get the orbs to move on, and then it kind of introduces you how you get your heart containers and your stamina containers, and then kind of forces you to learn how to climb and venture too. to get your glider. And once you glide down, I mean, it's fair game. I mean, you could just go do whatever you want.
Go straight to the boss. Go straight to the final boss and fight him.
You at the castle, you drop down straight in front of the castle, you could run right up to it. I mean,
I think that the journey to the castle is harder than the boss himself. Like, that's something else I really appreciate about this game is it does not hold your hand. It just says, go, figure it out. And a lot of the enemies are a one-hit kill for you when you first start the game.
Oh, yeah. Even I have quite a bit of heart containers now, and there's still some times they get me down to half a container.
Oh yeah, the Lionels will mess you up.
Yeah,
man.
they mess you up, and this kind of the cool thing though is either you could like try to fight them head on, or you could just book it and run and get the heck out of there. You're not forced to fight any of those enemies, and I think that's kind of my mindset is kind of stuck in that Majora's Mask where you're kind of stuck in there and you have to kill them and you're not going to get out of there until you killed them. And here, like, you could choose how you want to get around some of those Lionels.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to fight them. I know some people probably just, they take them head on, and other ones will book it as soon as those people, because they'll charge at you. And a lot of them will, like Surfer said, will mess you up.
Oh yeah, especially early in the game, they're a one-hit kill. Like, I think they take like 8 or 9 heart containers per swipe, so it'll destroy you.
And just kind of like you said with the just how it doesn't hold your hand.
I think too many games do that nowadays.
It really doesn't. There's a period where I was kind of playing it and like I have no idea what I'm doing or where am I going,
and that's okay.
And it forces you to explore, and then you come across villages and stuff, and you kind of get a grasp on, okay, this is what I'm doing, and they give you 4 locations to go to, and like you could go to them right away, or you could just go explore and do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think that Zelda Breath of the Wild starts off as more of a survival game than anything else. Like you gotta eat to keep up your heart containers.
That's something new too. Yeah, you have to eat. And
it's better
stay
to
warm, stay cold, dress accordingly to whatever climate you're in.
The weather. Yeah, I mean you gotta account for all those things, and traveling more at daytime than at nighttime because there's more dangerous enemies at night. So picking a strategy on how you're gonna get across Hyrule, it's really cool.
Yep. So kind of like you mentioned, just you briefly touched on stasis. So you get the Sheikah Slate, and that is something that is kind of really cool to me because it really gives you freedom on completing these tasks you have to do. And I think that's something I sometimes forget about is there's in previous games and even in other games where like I really wish I could just shoot an arrow at this and like knock this ball over a little bit. For it to fall in this place and roll it so I could grab it. Because, in other games, they wouldn't let you do that, or like the arrow wouldn't be strong enough. No, in this game, you literally, that's all you have to do.
If
you can actually use logic.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the great part about it is it's so free. Like, the experience is so freeing. If you can think it, you can do it. And that really shows up in a lot of the puzzles in the shrines. I know there's a couple of them where you have to use like the gamepad or the motion controls to get the ball to the spot so you can get to the shrine, to the orb. And I remember this one puzzle in particular, like if you flip the controller upside down, that the entire level becomes flat and you can just roll the ball over to where you need it to go instead of going through a whole freaking maze. Yeah.
And it's awesome. So kind of, I guess, going into it now, we already kind of briefly touched on it, but let's talk about that open world map. How awesome is this map? This world, I should say. It's not...
Well, I don't even know how to describe it, how awesome it is, because it just is. There are things I appreciate about it, and there's things I wish I could get more out of it.
There's sometimes you're running quite a bit, and you're not really getting anything out of that.
Right. I mean, you can like farm for critters and stuff to add to, their survivability, cooking and all that. But I wish there were more towns. I wish there was more interactivity, and more side quests to do. But I think that was also kind of the point of Breath of the Wild is it's 100 years in the future where, you know, Ganon has pretty much messed everything up. Like, towns are shredded. There's only a couple, like, really significant towns anymore. So it's more kind of a solidarity thing. And I think that's what they were going for. But I would like to see... I really wanted the DLC to be Hyrule 100 years ago. Like, in the past, and everything's, like, normal.
Yep.
I would have loved to have seen the kingdom like that.
I was just going to say, neither of us have played the DLC, so I don't know if there is more towns added or what, but for the game itself, I kind of felt the same way, that there wasn't enough towns. That's kind of one of my favorite parts, is just seeing the unique towns.
Mm-hmm.
I think the overall open worldness, though, is sweet. How you could just literally climb. If you see it, you could climb it.
Yeah.
And I thought that is just awesome. Because there's a lot of times I just climb this huge mountain cliff and I'd be like, I need to get over there, and just jump off and hang glide. And I could just paraglide all the way over there.
Yeah. I'd say the closest game that gives you that experience is probably like the Elder Scrolls series or the Fallout series. Like, Bethesda makes it as open as it can, but it's just not executed as well as Breath of the Wild, I don't think, because, you know, the climbing mechanic is just so good. Yeah. And I think the environment itself is like a boss in the game, you know, like just overcoming those obstacles in whatever way you can think of.
Yeah, because it's hard, because some of these areas where it's either freezing or super hot, like, you have the clothes, they'll reduce the your temperature gauge, but it's still like a sliver too little.
Yeah.
So you're still burning up or whatever, and that's where the cooking comes into play. Is you get these little, like, 5-minute cold, hot, you know, protection, and you have to hope you're really stocked up on those, because, I mean, you could be in those environments for quite a bit depending on what you're doing.
I will say, like, 5 minutes is a pretty good amount of time to get from point A to point B, but sometimes you do need to stock up a little bit, and that's part of the strategy in this game that I appreciate, is you got to prepare for the journey, because if you don't, you're not going to make it.
Well, there's one time where I was in this winter biome, and I had to shoot the dragon with the arrows to try to get a scale from it or whatever. And it took me quite a bit, and I just, you know, I had to keep using those recipes for the cold protection. But I think it's just crazy to think, though, is, you know, I almost have the whole map discovered just because of the towers. But there's probably so many areas I haven't even touched yet. It kind of reminds me, it's a completely different game, but it kind of reminds me of Wildlands, Ghost Recon, and just the fact that it's this huge map. And I just remember playing with my friend, you know, we'd be riding in a helicopter, and I'm like, dude, there's probably so many areas in this map that we've never even touched or seen.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of, not that it really matters, because there are probably areas that it's just vast land and in an environment that we're never going to do anything in, but it's the fact that that's so cool.
I think something that helps with that exploration in Breath of the Wild is the Korok seeds. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's a little excessive to have like over 900 of them.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But it forces you, you know, if you're a completionist, to really look at every nook and cranny of the map that these developers have created. So I think that, yeah, there are open, empty parts of the world, but there's always something to discover, whether it's a Korok seed or just like where fairies are or whatever it may be. But yeah, so the open world, I definitely appreciate it. Wish there was a little bit more, but I like it the way it is.
And to kind of keep it in the open world, I guess you could kind of throw in the weather. Weather is something new that I thought. What's great about this game is because they added so much attention to detail as far as like the thunder and the lightning. And when it's lightning, like, hey, if you have metal objects on, you have to take them off, or else you're gonna get electrocuted. And I thought that's really cool. And I thought it's even cooler how you could throw your weapon at an enemy and have the lightning, you know, hopefully come down and strike it. And, I mean, it's awesome. And then it impacts your climbing. You can't just climb whatever, like. If it's raining, you're going to slip and stuff. And now you have the stamina wheel, which, you know, that's just going to burn your stamina wheel, and it's going to make it a lot more difficult to explore that open world. But I just thought that as a really cool thing that they added in there that, I don't think a lot of games probably would have thought of that.
I think that you bring up a good point too about the interactivity in the game with how the enemies will face you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not the brightest, they'll do some dumb things, but
Some of them, yeah.
I think it's really clever, just the way that they interact. So, for example, say an enemy's gonna throw whatever at you, like they're gonna throw a barrel at you. If you use stasis as they're throwing it, that barrel will stay in the air above their head and they'll look confused. It's like, that's a cool little experience.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing if you take away one of the moblins, one of the bigger creatures, take away all their weapons, they'll actually throw the smaller bokoblins at you. Like the smaller creatures, they'll pick them up and throw them at you and you're like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I really enjoyed the little details in a game like that. I think it just creates a lot of character and just something else for you to explore.
And it just kind of goes back into like where I was talking about before, like the way you want to do something, you can actually do it now. And like now, if you want to do something to an enemy, you could do it, and it actually impacts them. Like you said, you could take away their weapons, and we'll start throwing the smaller ones at you. I mean, that's awesome.
Something fun you can do is you can put down like your own weapons and see how they'll utilize them. Like using one of the big leaves, like they'll actually try and swat you with it. It'll make you fly across the map. It's hilarious.
It's awesome. So I guess we'll kind of continue with the weapons.
Yeah.
Just like the weapons. So I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm coming from the last time I played Zelda game is Majora's Mask. But in that game, weapons didn't break.
Yeah.
In
this game they do.
And,
which can be frustrating.
Very frustrating. And when I first started playing it, I wasn't sure how I felt about that. I snuck up in this one area and got one of the fire blades.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. But like I didn't want to use it.
Because you didn't want it to break.
Because I didn't want it to break, but it had such better damage than the crappy weapons I was finding laying around. That has something different to me, but even the shields break. Yeah.
But after having played the game for a number of hours, I'm not sure how much, how do you feel about that weapon degradation system now?
Now I don't mind it. I don't know if it's a matter of it's like, well, I'm going to have to deal with it. But I think I've also found better weapons. And plus I got the Master Sword, which I was kind of disappointed that it has a recharge period, but I guess there is a way to eventually unlock the full potential in it. I'm not sure if there's still a recharge period for that.
Yeah.
But I think it makes the game a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
And just adding in that other component now is like now you have to have these extra weapons. And if you don't, you got to figure out how you're going to get past these enemies. And it's kind of like the thing where you could just run away.
Yeah.
You can steal their weapon. It's really kind of up to you, but it took me a little bit to get used to. But now I kind of like it.
I kind of felt this. I felt the same way whenever I first started with it. I'm like, man, this is bull crap. Like, I got this really cool weapon and it's gonna break in like 3 hits. But in hindsight, after having played the game and beaten it, and these weapons aren't as rare as you think they are. I mean, yeah, there's a select few of them that you can only find them in certain places, but they regenerate usually. Like you can come back and get them again. So it's not a total loss. And it forces you to play the game in a different way. So let's say, your weapon of choice is a one-handed sword.
Yep.
You're not always going to have that. So it kind of forces you to explore, how can I use this other weapon? Yep. And some weapons are better than others against certain enemies. So like a spear might be better for, long range, whereas, maybe you need the power. So
you could also throw your weapons now. So the spear is coming great for that.
And I'd say one of the downsides to throwing a weapon, though, is it breaks immediately after you throw it and hit an enemy with it. So I always save that for whenever it's in critical damage, that way you get that critical hit.
One thing I wasn't used to is I picked up a bow and arrow and I chucked it at an enemy, and I wasn't used to having to push a button again to catch it.
Oh, so yeah, the boomerangs.
I'm so bad at it. So every time I throw it at something, it just goes flying past me, and then I have to try to run and find it again. And But one thing I did think was cool is when you shoot arrows and stuff now, that if you miss an enemy, you could run back.
You can
and
go pick
the
them up.
arrows.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that they just don't vanish forever. You know,
Yeah.
they're there still, and I think that's cool. But even just some of the weapons that you could pick up the wooden sticks and stuff as weapons. You could pick up the spears. There's just the skeleton arms. Like you could pick up.
There's a
much
lot of variety.
Any
Yeah.
stuff as a weapon, and it's really cool. Broomstick, I think, was one. Like just random stuff.
When
A
you
rake.
when you get really good at the game, you'll be able to deflect the Guardian's laser beam with
Yeah, you can
with a
parry
freaking
it.
pot. Yeah, with a pot lid.
Yep, yeah. So there's just a lot of cool things you could do with these weapons, and granted they break, but like you said, you could pretty much find them anywhere.
Yeah, it's just
Some
just
of the
about remembering
real
on where
ones.
they're at, and that comes with just game knowledge and time.
So kind of, how do you feel about the control scheme itself?
You know,
when
honestly,
you're using those weapons.
I really like the control scheme. It does get a little confusing sometimes when you're trying to switch like your weapons versus your shields versus arrows and bows. I mean, that part can be a little rough when you're trying to do the quick switch with the D-pad, I guess you could call it. But overall, the controls feel pretty good. They're pretty consistent. They're smooth. I don't like the motion controls. I'm glad you can turn those off. I don't know. I've never been a fan of motion controls except for with the Wii with like the sports games, like tennis and stuff. But other than that, like if I'm doing like a shooter or anything else, I like sticking to the controller. Maybe that's just because I'm an older gamer and that's just how I grew up. But motion controls are complicated.
Yeah, I kind of felt
accurate.
I felt the same exact way about the motion controls. I tried them out for a bit, and every time I tried to use a bow and arrow, I'd miss so bad. And once I found out I could turn them off, I was very grateful for that. I thought it made shooting bow and arrow so much easier. One thing I had to get used to was just the fighting itself. You still kind of do the targeting on, but now you can do the backflips, the side jumps, which you could do before, and then now you could parry, and then you had the kind of like the fury attack that if you time the jump right, you keep
go
hitting
slow
Y.
motion.
Yeah, but then you unleash kind of like this little fury attack. But I find it kind of difficult for me sometimes. I have trouble locking in on enemies. It won't always lock in on the one I want, or I'll be fighting and I don't know, the camera just gets turned around, and then I keep hitting the L button, try to get it to lock on, and it just won't. So sometimes that might just be completely a player error there. I mean, it might not even be the game. It's probably just me, but that's something I struggle with. But I liked how quickly you could change weapons. So you could switch shields quick. You could switch main weapons quick. You could switch arrows quick. Switch bow and arrows quick. I thought that was really awesome. Just a quick way instead of having to go in a menu every time to pick up. Pick your item that you want to use. I think they did a really good job. I think the controls are pretty darn good.
Yeah, I wish there was one thing, like, you get to see it in, like, the trailers in that, where you get the shield surf, and they didn't explain how to do that.
I still don't know how to do that.
Yeah, it's like, it's a 3-button combo. I can't, like, if
I run, push A, or something like that.
Jump and shield at the same time or something, but if I had the controller in my hand, I could do it, but I can't think of how to do it. Like, at one point in the game, you'll find someone on the map who teaches you how to shield surf, but you can do it as soon as you get out of...
Good shield.
Yeah, as soon as you get a shield, you can do it. But I wish that was explained a little bit better. But anyway, it's a small gripe,
Yeah,
and it's part of the exploration. When you finally do figure out how to do it, whether it's on accident or being explained, it feels so freaking cool. Like, to be
awesome.
surfing down a mountain, like, the grass is just... You're going so fast, you're like, man, I wish I could have done this from the start.
Yep. How do you feel about... I guess one gripe I had, I felt it was kind of hard to control the horse.
The horse is hard to control now that you mention it a little bit.
Like, it's hard, yeah.
It's kind of got a mind of its own a little bit.
That's what it seems like. Like, it has a mind of its own. You know, I'll be trying to steer one direction or whatever, and it kind of just does its own thing. And I have a feeling it doesn't get any easier.
No.
But there's something I thought, and then, you know, you always had to kind of recenter the camera because for some reason it would lose its center. I mean, that's my small gripe.
Yeah.
Other than that, I thought the controls are great. So kind of, I guess we'll go into the Shrines and Beasts.
Okay. So I guess I'll touch on the shrines because I really love the puzzle aspect of Zelda. It's been around since the game first, you know, got developed. And one of my favorite games, Ocarina of Time, like what do you call them? The temples.
Yeah, the temples.
I always get confused, but the temples themselves, like, were giant puzzles.
I hated the water temple.
Everybody says that, but the water temple wasn't that hard. I'd argue that the spirit temple was worse, where you had to go down into the well and deal with all those
zombie
creepy ass monsters and stuff. Yeah, I'd argue that I didn't like. I liked it, but I didn't like it because you had to use that glass eye to see things. I just didn't enjoy that. I would say that my favorite temple, just as a side note from that game, was probably the grass temple. I can't remember exactly what it was called.
Is it adult?
It was the very first one that you did, but it introduced you, you know, to Link as an adult. It introduced you to eventually what was going to be the final boss battle. It taught you how to do that, and I always like it when a game does that. It ties in, like, components from the game at the beginning that you have to use at the end. And it doesn't leave you feeling like cheated or confused. No. It's like, okay, I know how to do this. I just got to do it. But anyway, as far as the temple or the shrines go in Breath of the Wild, I think they're really great. However, I wish that the Divine Beasts were longer, and I wish there was more variety.
I mean, they're pretty much just a larger shrine, I feel like.
Yeah, but I just don't feel like they were as in-depth as I wanted them to be. And I get where the developers are coming from. I think that they wanted it to be more about the open world than it was, you know, getting from these destinations and doing these puzzles. But
I think they added more of what you're looking for in one of the DLCs, is where they kind of knew they didn't get some of those people that liked the aspect you're talking about.
Yeah.
They didn't give that to the people that wanted that in the first game, so they kind of came out with it in a DLC.
Yeah, so I do have the DLC, I just haven't played it yet. The shrines themselves, the little ones, were a delight, depending on which ones you got. Some of the puzzles were really fun, others were a little frustrating, but I think that's just with any game.
Yeah.
Then there's, of course, the shrines where you just have to beat the enemy, you get the thing. Or if it was a really difficult shrine to get to, they would just give you the orb because it was... Like, the open world part was the hard part.
That was the task.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was kind of cool. Because
like
sometimes variety. Where I got to the shrine, I was like, man, it is difficult getting here, and I really don't feel like doing anything right now. And, you know, nothing felt better when I walked through that door, and it's like, oh, you already, you know, passed this trial, and just give you the orb right away. I was like, this is awesome. Thank you.
Yes, please. Please just give me this orb after I climbed up this giant mountain and fought a Lionel at the top.
Yes.
Thank you.
Exactly.
After I beat this dragon.
This is the least you could do. I thought the shrines were pretty cool. I kind of appreciated the smaller... I think because there's so many shrines that it kind of makes up for not having one large temple, you know. You just kind of... You do these quick puzzles. Some of them aren't quick. But, I mean, really, I don't think they're overly difficult.
Yeah.
I thought some of the fighting challenges were more difficult than the puzzles.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, especially early on, if you happen to run into a shrine where you had to defeat one of, like, the tougher guardians... You were pretty screwed because you got like 3 or 4 hearts and it's a one-hit kill on you. So
one thing I did appreciate about the shrines is they instantly become a warp point.
Oh, so yeah, I totally forgot about that.
There, and then if it makes a mark on your map, so if you go in there and whatever you haven't beat it yet, it'll let you still know on your map, and you can warp back there at any other time.
Made it much easier to travel.
So much easier, and that's easier to get to towns or wherever you're trying to go. It's just a lot better.
I like that you have the option too, because some people do, they just want to get A to B real fast, whereas others want to be more immersive. They want to like actually travel across the the open world as much as possible. But me, I'm like, let's just get there.
Yep. Nope. Yep. Time now. I thought the beasts. I didn't think they're too bad. I kind of like that they made them challenging. You had to, whatever kind of, depending on the beast you're in, the type of animal and machine it was, the way you had to manipulate certain parts of them.
Yeah.
To get to treasure chests or whatever the terminals you're trying to sink.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. Really, but none of them were super challenging, I thought.
I think another thing that the game suffers from is that there's not enough variety in enemies. I think you're fighting the same type of enemy over and over and over again, and it's frustrating for me. And because the shrines, or not the shrines, the beasts themselves, they don't really have a whole lot of enemies in them. It suffers from a lack of variety because you essentially fight the same thing at the end of each divine beast.
Each divine beast, and then just within it too.
Yeah,
you had the mini guardians, and then
they just didn't stand out to me. It just felt very bland. I guess that's one of the critiques I have for this game. Like, the combat against enemies just felt very, I don't know, rudimentary, I guess you would say, just very repetitive, which is something that I feel like they could have taken a page out of Ocarina of Time's book, because I can remember almost every single boss that I fought in that game. Because each one was a unique challenge.
Unique.
Yes.
I mean, pretty much each boss at the end of those beasts were just kind of like whatever you had to go through to get up to that beast is a form of Ganon, and then it just had whatever kind of theme you're going with. Whether there's a water theme or electric theme or fire theme. It's kind of Fire Blight Ganon and whatever Ganon and blah 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 Ganon. It's just like
the really fast Ganon.
Yeah, it's like the beast isn't a fire. You're gonna fight a fire Ganon. And I mean, that's kind of like you said, it's pretty much the same Ganon. I think the Ganon in the desert is probably the one I struggled with the most.
Yeah.
The other
three,
he's stupid fast, and then he slammed down those little pillar things. And sometimes I struggled pulling those out and getting it to.
Oh yeah, because he had to use the magnesis, right, to hit him with it.
And I thought that is really that's the only one I struggled with. And other than that, I thought the Divine Beasts were relatively easy. Yeah. The hardest part was just getting up to them. And
I guess since we're talking about the Divine Beasts and we're kind of talking about the bosses, I guess, have you beaten the final boss yet?
I have not.
I guess I could say,
no spoiler.
Because, no spoiler here, but I can talk about the final boss and the fact that it's memorable. Like, it's, like, you're going to remember doing it, but you're going to be disappointed, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, it just, it felt like a letdown to me. I remember the phases of the boss, I remember what it looked like, but I remember feeling like, man, that was too easy. Or, man, that was... It didn't give me that, like, rush. Like, whenever you first fight Ganondorf in the castle, and you guys are volleying his energy beam back and forth, and then you jump over and you have to smack him with the sword, and then you have to escape the castle, and at the end, he bursts out of the castle and turns into Ganon, the beast monster.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't have that intensity for me. I was just like, alright, I'm going through the motions, and I'm going to beat this boss, and that's the end of the game. Which was disappointing for me, but you'll have to let me know whenever you get to the end of that how you felt about that.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah, and we already touched base on
be there soon.
The other bosses and beasts. So, what is something else?
What about the side quests? How do you feel about the side quests?
I like the variety of them. They've got the fetch quest, they've got the escort quests, they've got. It's not bad. I like them. They're a good supplement to the rest of it.
Yeah, I thought it's just something like if you didn't feel like doing the main story, you could go ahead and do these mini quests. And
right.
I think, like you said, there's a good variety of them. That you don't even. I like that they're not time bound.
Right.
Either, so you could just kind of come back to them if you kind of get stuck or whatever, and start accomplishing them that way.
Yeah. So. As far as side quests go, they're fun, but I could have done without them. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did like a couple of them. They had some really cool character moments, so that was really fun for me.
Yeah. So what about the clothing and customization? How'd you feel about that?
I really like that. I really like that addition to this game because then you can make Link kind of your own. But it also helps with the strategy part of the game. You know, like you were saying earlier, you wear certain clothes, you can go to certain places without having to worry about the temperature. I don't know, and there's fun costumes too.
Yeah, I thought it is. I glad I could kind of customize Link how I want him to be, and don't have to wear the classic green tunic. Not that I didn't like it. Actually, if I had it, I'd probably wear it. But I just think it's cool. You can kind of make him your own character, and it's just kind of like a new Link. 100 years later from.
Yeah,
And it was just something I thought was pretty cool to do, and you could dye the different outfits and stuff and kind of make them your own and how you want them to look. And
you can upgrade them too, which was cool.
I like it. Yep.
And then some of them had different abilities. Like I believe, semi-spoiler, that if you had the Zora armor, you could like climb up waterfalls, which was really cool.
So some of them do have different abilities that you kind of. Some of them there's some that you need for certain areas.
Oh yeah, definitely. Whether it's like going up a lava mountain, you need to not be super hot. Or if you're going to the snow biomes, like you said, you don't want to freeze to death.
Yep. Yeah. So we kind of covered a lot of the gameplay and stuff. But how about the music?
I like the music. I wish there was more of it. And I know they were going for more of a minimalistic style, which it works for this game. But I've always loved music. And the more I hear, the better it is.
Yeah.
So, I don't think there was any memorable music in this game.
Not a lot of memorable music.
But it sounds good.
It kind of comes in and out, and just during different times, like when an enemy comes near, you kind of hear the fighting music or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's just times where you hear there's like like you'll just be kind of running along, like nothing's really happening, and I think it's just kind of, it comes when it's needed, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's very minimal.
I think the reason I miss it so much is because in Zelda games, music tends to play such a major role. I mean,
it does.
You had the Ocarina and Ocarina of Time. You had the, what do you call it? The conductor's stick or whatever you call it from Wind Waker. I think even in the later games like Skyward Sword, there was some form or aspect of music. I can't remember exactly what it was, but... because unfortunately Skyward Sword wasn't super memorable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the music is great, the little bit that they give you.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, if they added more, cool. If not, I'm fine.
You could do with or without, yeah.
I think...
Like I said, if it was any other game, I think I'd be more forgiving of it, but since it's a Zelda game, I feel like music's just an integral part of it,
yeah.
So...
It is what kind of Zelda's known for.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last thing we're going to touch on is the voice acting in it.
The voice acting is so controversial in this game.
See, I like it.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't like it. There were parts that I did like. It was okay, but overall I liked kind of the stoic, and you still get that from Link, but... all the other characters, I didn't mind the reading.
Yeah, you never hear him talk.
Right.
But you hear all the other characters talking. There's one or two where I was kind of like, okay, the way they made him sound was kind of,
there was a part in the game where I was confused. I wasn't sure who I was listening to because they had very similar voices.
Yeah. Yeah, but I liked having, like, Zelda talk, and she kind of served as that, like, big sister role.
Yeah.
And I thought that was... I don't know, I like that, and just hearing her talk, and and just hearing some of the dialogue and the memories.
Yeah.
I think that just kind of added to the story and kind of gave you just a glimpse of what Hyrule was like back in that 100 years ago. And I really like the voice acting though, minus a few characters.
Yeah, a couple characters were pretty weak for a AAA game, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were. But I think it just, I really enjoyed it. I think it just kind of added to the game, gave you some cut scenes and kind of...
I did like
Gave you a little bit more to the story.
Yeah, I liked looking for the memories in the game. Just kind of
It's
added
one-
that extra
I-
layer,
it's one of my
something
favorite
extra to look
things
at.
is
Yeah,
I kind of get when I see the yellow glowing area.
you feel really rewarded.
I'm
Like,
dude,
yeah,
I was like, yeah, and I get to see something cool. And there's some cool cutscenes.
yeah.
Um,
And you get to learn a little bit about Link and Zelda's background,
Yeah.
and as well as the other champions in the game.
yep, yeah. So,
So,
it's kind of a review of Breath of the Wild. If you had to give it a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being obviously the best.
like the perfect game.
Yeah,
I would say based off of the scale from 0 or 1 to 10, that 5's average. I would give it an 8.5. I know that may seem kind of low, but having played the game pretty much twice and had hindsight past that honeymoon phase, I guess you could call it, where everybody's like doting over it, like, oh, this is really great, 10 out of 10. I would say 8.5 for the reasons I listed before. There were definitely things that could have been improved, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, though. It's still a great game, and I think it's a must-play. I think if you're a Zelda fan, you're going to love it. But
I think
I'm picky.
Yeah, you are. Picky bastard. I think I'd give it a 9.
9, okay.
Just because from some of the few gripes I did have about it, obviously, it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty darn close to it.
Yeah.
I obviously haven't beaten it yet, so I may be disappointed at the end of it, but up to this point, I think it's just from coming from Majora's Mask to this and just other games I've played in the past on other systems and stuff, I think this game kind of blows a lot of them away.
It's a huge jump, I'd say my favorite part of the game is probably the graphics, the aesthetics. It looks fantastic.
Yep.
It's a beautiful game.
It is.
Like, I loved every second of
is.
looking at it, definitely.
It's,
I like that
I
mix
don't get
of-
tired of looking at it.
Yeah,
I
no, I mean-
enjoy looking at it.
Every single frame of that game can be a screenshot. The lighting is perfect. I like the mix of the cell shading versus the realism. They kind of combined Wind Waker with Skyward Sword, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword was a little bit more cartoony, not compared to Wind Waker, but just
Wind
in
Waker
general,
was
it wasn't
first
as
cartoony.
it wasn't as realistic as Twilight Princess, but Twilight Princess was so dark and muddy, kind of, like the color scheme, whereas Breath of the Wild is just boom colors. It's beautiful. So yeah, that's my favorite part of that game.
I agree.
I'd say my least favorite part of the game probably is the boss fights. I don't know. They're not memorable. They don't stand out for me. I have more vivid memories of just crossing Hyrule than I do fighting any boss in that game, including the final boss. So that's my critiques on that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think that my favorite thing is just the aesthetics of it, the music, the sound. So everything's done really well. And then my biggest gripe would probably be, I guess, similar to you, is bosses. Maybe a little bit more challenging. I thought maybe for me getting back into Zelda is probably good that it wasn't. It's because I haven't played a game like this for a while. And then just the weapons always breaking and stuff. I hated that, but I got used to it. But I would also welcome some of the weapons probably not breaking or having a recharge period. I definitely welcome that back.
Yeah.
But so that's our critique of Breath of the Wild, and then we'll be back for our final segment in a little bit. All right, and we're back. So we're gonna play 20 questions, kind of borrowing it from one of the IGN podcasts. I think it's something that is really cool, except they go from pretty much any game. I think it's fair game in their podcast. I don't think we have as much knowledge as them.
No, probably not.
Played nowhere as many games as them, so
I wish.
Kudos to them. We're gonna we're gonna narrow it down each week to one system, and one of us will guess that game, and maybe eventually, longer down the road, seeing how this takes off, we'll come up with a different game. But for right now, this is what we're gonna kind of do to kind of end the podcast on a fun note.
Yeah. So I'm picking the game this week. We're doing the Nintendo 64 because, going from our gaming histories, I think we both really enjoyed the N64, and that's probably the console we played the most similar games.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I've got my game chosen. So doing the 20 questions you ask, and I will answer.
All right. So, is it a shooter?
No.
No. Is it an adventure game?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so it's an adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
Is your character male?
Yes.
Male. Is it an animal?
No.
Okay. Do you fight bosses in this game?
I believe so, yes.
Male.
It's been a while. I can't remember.
Uh-oh. Okay. Do you have to collect certain items throughout your journey in this game?
No.
Is the final boss an animal?
No.
Does your character wear a hat?
No.
Is it first person?
No.
Animal is male. Fight bosses.
To clarify on the boss fight, I think there's only like one boss fight. I think it's at the end.
Okay. Do you pilot any vehicles in this?
No.
It's 10.
How you feeling so far?
Not too good.
You're at 10.
Not too good. I know he's a male. It's an adventure game.
Dude, trust me, I'm terrible at 20 questions.
No hat. One boss, maybe. No weapons.
Yep, no weapons.
And you don't actually have to like collect like keys, stars, stuff like that.
No.
No collecting certain items to progress. Whew. Yeah. Are you on planet Earth in this game?
Yes.
So Earth. Okay. Are there other characters that you play along with?
No.
Okay. Man,
This is tough, man.
this is a challenging one. I'm not really sure where to go from here.
Mm-hmm.
Are there people that help you along the way through it?
No.
So you're strictly on your own?
Yep. Should have saved that question. So now we're at 14.
Yep. You're on your own Earth. Do you fight dinosaurs?
No. That's a good question, though. I saw where you were going with that.
Yeah.
For the record, I think he was thinking Turok,
I was.
but it's not that. Although that is a great game. It was a lot of fun.
That's where I was going with it. You don't use weapons, so...
No. Oh, yeah, that would have knocked Turok out then.
Yeah. Man. I wonder if I played this game.
Probably not, I'm guessing.
Okay.
I feel like if you did, you would remember it.
Was the goal of this game to save somebody?
Yes.
Okay. A male character saving someone. No hat.
No, it's not Mario, man.
No weapons.
Nope.
No collecting to progress. Did you swing from vines?
No. It's a good one, though. It's a good question.
I got three more left. Huh.
And the shoes on the other foot is difficult.
This game come out toward the the end years of N64. It come out in the
I want to say it was toward the middle.
Okay. Middle. Were you fighting other humans in this?
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes, yes. One more question. Huh. What game could this be?
It's a tough one.
No weapon.
Man, this is really driving you nuts. There's no weapons in this game.
What game doesn't use weapons? Oh, dude.
I wonder if any of our listeners got it.
Oh, did you crash land onto Earth?
Ooh. In the game, or... you didn't crash land in the game. No. I'll explain that.
So I'm assuming you already crash landed.
What's your guess?
I don't know if I played this game.
If you could guess any game, what do you think it would be?
I don't know. The no weapons things was throwing me off.
You give up?
Ah,
You hate to give up. You're like, I'm not a quitter.
I don't quit. I was gonna say a Star Wars game.
Ooh, but they have weapons, man.
I know. That's where the no weapons things. I don't know this one.
Superman 64. He doesn't use weapons. Everything comes from him.
You know what? Yep.
And there aren't any collectibles. However, you do fly through rings the whole game. And as far as boss fights, I think you end up punching Brainiac at one point. But I can't remember because I never finished the game because it was so frustrating.
I never played that game.
I chose that game because it was voted, I think, the worst game of all time.
That's probably why I never played it.
It is so awful. We could do an entire roast on that game. Like, we would have to pick up a copy of it so you could play it. But, oh my goodness, the controls are terrible. The game is just terrible.
Well, yeah, that's a good one to stump me with because I never played that game. I forgot it even was out for Nintendo 64.
I was so disappointed when I rented that game from Blockbuster. Let me tell you. I was so stoked to be Superman. So stoked to be Superman, like this all-powerful being, and I'm restricted to flying through rings and tutorials, essentially. It was irritating. Well, anyway, I think that was a very good first show. I really enjoyed communicating with you and our listeners about our thoughts and feelings on Breath of the Wild, having a little bit of fun with this 20 questions game, talking a little bit about our gaming history. So the moving forward, I guess what we're gonna do is just whenever we can, we'll do another one and see where we go from there.
Yep. So it was a great time. Looking forward to kind of continuing this little project we have going, and hope our listeners like it too. And eventually we'll make an email address and give out to our viewers and send in suggestions or critiques or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you in a few weeks.
Yep. Thanks for listening.